Hey guys, Joe here, and welcome to this 13th episode of the Daily Sketch series. For today's video, I just wanted to tell you a quick update about my health because yesterday I mentioned that I was having some issues with my throat and everything, and I'm kind of surprised because I usually am the kind of person that if it gets sick, like if I get even the slightest symptoms that I'm going to be sick, I usually, like 10 out of 10 times, I'll get super sick. So yeah, it has surprised me that I feel a little bit better than yesterday. I remember that at night my throat stopped hurting as much, and then when I woke up, I didn't feel sick at all, so that's a good thing, I guess. I hope it continues on like this. And yeah, for today's topic, I wanted to talk about how important it is to not rush art, because sometimes, especially in my case, I have noticed that I have the tendency to try to rush everything, and in the end it makes things worse, honestly. It doesn't always end up in with a bad outcome, but most of the time it does, and so I want to share that with you today. Maybe if you're feeling the need to rush a project, just stop for a second and think that if you rush it, you're probably going to mess up more easily than if you were to take your time drawing it, which in the end will cause you to take more time to finish the stuff that you're doing. I believe it's true for most artists that we are all perfectionists at some degree, and if you rush stuff, then it's going to take you longer in the end because you're going to start spotting mistakes and you're going to want to go back and redo those mistakes, and that's especially true for me, and that's what happened during this sketch. I initially was planning on just doing it very quickly, not rushing it too much, but trying to complete it as fast as I could, and in the end I had to redo a few areas over and over again just because I didn't take my time to measure things properly and to get my angles right before I started detailing and all that stuff. I know I said that in a previous video that I was getting a little bit better at that, but this time I just wanted to get it done quickly, and so I tried to brush it, and in the end it was just counterproductive. And that's something that you have to keep in mind, especially with bigger pieces, because with a smaller sketch like this, it's very easy to cover up mistakes or to go back and fix things if you don't like something. But with bigger illustrations, it's a little bit more complicated because you have to take into consideration that you have already planned a layout for your drawing and a composition and stuff like that, and so if you mess up during the process, it's going to be harder to come back and fix things up. So in my experience, it's better to take just your time. If you don't want to take everything too slowly, at least the sketching phase, do it very slowly and very diligently. It doesn't mean that you cannot try and be a fast drawer. It just means that you have to be more disciplined and not try to leave everything very loose, because if you do that, then it's going to hurt you in the long run. And not that it will make you a bad artist or anything, but it's going to make you have a lot of mistakes and make a lot of mistakes, which is something that we want to avoid when we're trying to finish a piece on time. I haven't personally dealt with a lot of deadlines in my time as an artist because I've just taken a few commissions here and there, and every time that I have, it's just like one project per commissional season, or I don't know how to call it. But yeah, so I haven't had issues managing my time in that scenario. But I remember when I was in school and we were to have projects due to a certain date, what I would do is try and work everything slowly but gradually. I'm the kind of person that when I start something new, I tend to try and finish it right away just so that I can have more free time to do whatever I want to do. But yeah, it can be a little bit exhausting when you have a bunch of projects to do. If it were just one, then I would be okay with trying to rush that and like taking a whole day to do just that and then have the rest of the week free, for example. But when you're dealing with a bunch of projects at the same time that all have different delivery dates, but each delivery date is close to one another, then it becomes a little bit more tricky because you have to take into consideration that you cannot even if you finish a whole piece in one day, you are going to have to finish another piece the next day and so on, and so it won't feel like you have enough free time. So what I found it's best to do in those scenarios is to just try and manage each project individually and then do it slowly, and in the end it's going to be like slowly but every day, and so in the end you will have work to do every single day, but during those days you'll also have enough time to take a break or do other stuff non-art related or non-project related, which can help you psychologically to to avoid burnout and to also keep you encouraged to keep on working on your project or whatever you're doing. And yeah, that's something that I try to keep in mind often, because I know that I'm the kind of person who just rushes at times, and it's not a good thing to do. Like right now, I'm working on a set of portrait in which I have 2 different characters on it. It's the first time that I'm ever drawing 2 people in the same illustration or in the same page, interacting with one another, because usually I just draw like one single portrait and then that's it, I call it a day. But this time I wanted to do something different, and I had this concept floating around my mind for a long time now, and I wanted to execute it, so I decided to give it a go. And yeah, it's taking a lot of time. Right away I can see that it's going to take a lot of time, because usually I can take my sweet time rendering just one face, and then at the end I'm going to feel tired, but it's going to be okay because the toughest part is over, and then I can move on to different things which don't require as much attention to detail as a face would do. So in this case, I'm trying to take a different approach to the drawing, because I know that if I try to do the same that I was doing with my other pieces of work, like with my other drawings, it's going to turn out very weird. Also, another thing that I can advise you when you're working on a bigger scale is to not focus on just one area, but try and do everything simultaneously. This means that if you have a composition in which, let's say you have a character in the middle, and then there are some trees around it, and then a snake climbing on top of the character or something like that, then it's better to just not render just one thing. Like say you want to render the whole snake before working on everything else. It's better to try and render everything gradually. Like if you are working on the snake and you're adding the first layer of shading, then try and do the same for the face and for the human figure, and also for the trees and for any other thing that requires shading. This will help your piece look more cohesive than if you were to work it separately. Each subject separately, it's going to look maybe a little bit weird, because sometimes you don't feel the same drive to draw as other days. So maybe one day is going to be great and you're going to render one thing beautifully, but then the next day you're not feeling so good, but you have to work on that piece, and then you work it, but it doesn't turn out as good as the other parts. And so it's going to be very noticeable if you render one thing first and then move on to the next thing and so on. So yeah, it's better, just like what I described with the Riley method, that it was better to first lay out a skeleton of the face and then shade and detail everything. It's the same thing with bigger compositions. You first want to layer the whole composition or the whole drawing, and then start shading one layer for the whole drawing, and then another layer for the whole drawing, and so on until you get to the detailing phase, and then you can mess around with those. So yeah, that was it for today's topic. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you leave a like and a comment down below. Subscribe if you want to see more, and turn on post notifications if you want. And I'll catch you in the next one. Also, check out my other social media for more of my work. And yeah, thanks for watching.